continuing on with our homily series and talking about the Offertory. And so today I wanted to go through the liturgical actions that are going on during the Offertory. We've already talked about what's been going on internally in your hearts. But what goes on externally? Well, there's two big things that are going on. First, the preparation of the altar, and then the Offertory procession with the gifts. And so we'll talk about those. I also want to talk a little bit about the chalice, because it's kind of the preeminent sacred vessel. So the setting of the altar, the two big things, of course, that are brought to the altar when it is prepared are the Missal for the priest to read prayers out of, and then the chalice. And this is really all done. I mean, the server certainly help here, but the deacon, if he is present, is the one who sets the altar. And that is because he has that ministry of service. We remember how in the book of Acts, when the diaconate is established, the very first duty of the order of the diaconate, the kind of founding reason for it, is to serve at table. And so the deacon still continues that ministry in the Mass liturgically. And so the chalice, of course, is the big part of what he is preparing there, and it is very sacred. You know, it is kind of the preeminent sacred vessel in the liturgy. We do have, of course, the ciborium, which is the bowl on the stem with a base, at least that's how it's traditionally shaped, which holds the precious body, the host's. And that is, in that sense, just as sacred. But as far as devotion, art, religious traditions go, the chalice is much more central in focus. You know, just think of the legend of the Grail, the cup that caught the blood of Christ. That's a big part of legend and so forth. So even in language, you know, we often refer to the precious blood of Christ by talking about the chalice. Even in the scriptures, St. Paul says, the chalice of blessing which we bless, is it not a participation in the blood of Christ? So they become almost interchangeable. And like so many other things that we have talked about already in the liturgy, the chalice really becomes a symbol of Jesus Christ, because, of course, it holds Jesus Christ himself, his precious blood. And so it must be blessed. And in fact, traditionally, it is actually consecrated with sacred chrism, one of the sacred oils of the church, to consecrate it for use at the Mass. And it should be made of precious metal, certainly nothing breakable, which is why the practice that had come in for a while of using glass chalices and things like this has been forbidden now. And again, because it is a symbol of Christ, we show it honor by veiling it. That's the whole point of the chalice veil. I mean, originally, it was mainly there to keep the chalice clean, to decorate it. But people sometimes talk too about how the unveiling of the chalice at this point of the Mass, at the Offertory, is like Christ being stripped of his garments before the sacrifice of Calvary, and how when it is revealed after communion, that is like Christ being veiled from our eyes as he ascends into heaven. So, that's kind of a pretty thought, if it helps you meditate on what is going on there. But for the priest, this is my opinion obviously, but the chalice is like his highest possession. You know, if there's one thing that you want to own in your life as a priest, it's your chalice. It's often a very personal, piece of art and blessed thing. My chalice, which I'll be using today in Mass, was given to me by Monsignor Robert Vader. You probably don't know him. He was a priest out in Campbell County, from my neck of the woods. But he was a very holy man, and I lived with him for one summer as a seminarian. He's passed away now. May he rest in peace. But this chalice was made for him by his aunt and uncle, who were jewelers. And there's actually a diamond embedded into the base of it, which was from his mother's engagement ring. So very worthy and beautiful offering to God in this way. And so they become chalices, often a kind of heirloom, which is passed from one priest to the next. And so the chalice is really very sacred to all of us as a symbol of Christ. But then, of course, it has a bunch of accessories. And these are the things that are getting all set up during this point. So you have the paten, the little metal disc that goes with the chalice and holds the host. Then we mentioned the veil, but there's also this cardboard part that sits on top called the burse, which holds the corporals. And then there is the corporal itself, which is kind of the most sacred piece of liturgical linen. But it's called that, the corporal, from the Latin word corpus, meaning body. Because in the extraordinary form, I never realized this until I became a priest, but in the old form of Mass, the host, which becomes the body of Christ, doesn't sit for most of liturgy on the paten, it sits on the corporal. And so that's where it picks up the name corporal. And then, of course, there is the kind of white cardboard square that sits on the chalice. That is called the chalice pall. Pall simply means covering, and it's there to protect the precious blood, of course, from anything dropping into it, which obviously is not real practical in this day and age inside, but nonetheless, it reminds us of the sacredness of the precious blood. And then finally, the little white napkin, which is called the purificator, and we use it for purifying all the vessels. So that's what's getting set up. Now, of course, daily Mass here, we also usually have a ciborium up here with at least a couple of hosts in it. And that reminds us that, of course, we have to use up all the kind of extra hosts that are in the tabernacle from Sunday Mass. But the general instruction of the Roman Missal reminds us that it is desirable for the people to be able to receive hosts that are consecrated at the very same Mass that they are going to. And so we try to provide a little bit of an opportunity to do that with that extra ciborium that we put up there. So while that is all going on, the offertory procession is getting ready to occur. Once the altar is prepared, right, the priest comes down, he receives the gifts of bread and wine from the people on a Sunday Mass. And this is very ritualized, of course. You know, it used to be in times past that at this point of the Mass, people would bring up not simply bread and wine, but food and clothes and animals and all kinds of things that they were offering to God, the church, the poor. And in effect, this is still done through the whole collection. I mean, this is the point of the collection, that it is providing for the needs of the church and of the poor. Now, of course, we just have representatives of the congregation who bring up simply the bread and wine, and sometimes simply representative portions of the bread and wine. But still, the meaning is still the same, this offering of gifts to God. And of course, the collection, you know, sometimes we say it can't possibly be a Catholic Mass if there's no collection, right? But really, that practice of bringing the collection forward, whether that's done as part of the offertory procession or not, clearly this giving of a gift and offering through the form of money to God is a very concrete way of saying, I do offer myself. And so this is really the key moment. You should see in these gifts that are being brought forward, being received by the hands of the priest, being placed on the altar of God, and preparing to be transformed into Christ himself. You should see yourself there. You are the one who is to be transformed into Jesus Christ. You know, when the bishop ordains the priest, he places into our hands the chalice and the paten along with bread and wine. And he says, receive the oblation of the holy people to be offered to God. And this is my ministry. This is what I am a priest for. You know, just as surely as my ministry as a priest relies on your financial generosity, so to speak, so that we have funds to buy bread and wine, so that we have funds so that I don't have to work a regular job and can take care of the spiritual needs of God's people. In the same way, I rely on your spiritual offering along with the bread and wine if I am going to complete my ministry as a priest. Because if you are not offering yourself at this point in the Mass along with that bread and wine, then what am I offering? Certainly, I mean, I'm offering Jesus Christ, and that's kind of the most important thing, and I'm offering myself. But I became a priest for your salvation. You are the reason that I have this ministry. And so, in order to offer you to God, I need your cooperation. We must all offer ourselves together if we are to be united to the offering of Christ. So that is the importance of these liturgical actions that go on here. And next time we'll go through the prayers to kind of wrap up the offertory. And I know we're kind of spending a lot of time on the offertory, but I think it's a very key part of the Mass for us to understand if we're going to actively participate in it. And so let us prepare ourselves to truly offer ourselves to God that we may be changed into the body and blood of Jesus Christ.